everyone, and welcome to the Truth and Data podcast, where we delve into a different forensics topic each week. I'm Jessica,
I'm Kim.
I'm Debbie.
and with us today we have a special guest, Kevin Pagano.
Hello.
And the reason that we have Kevin as a special guest is today's topic is capture the flags, or CTFs. We're going to talk about what they are, why you should play them, what goes into building one, and more. So, welcome, Kevin.
Thanks for having me. How
It's
exciting.
It is exciting. It's been a long
It
time
is.
since I've
It's gonna
had you
be
on the other
fun.
side of a podcast table or
Yeah.
virtual podcast table. Um, so, Kevin, you've played CTFs, you've won CTFs, you've you've created CTFs. What is a CTF for anyone listening? A capture the flag.
Well, there's multiple variations of capture the flag contests, but a lot of times we're talking about kind of DFIR ones. And even within the DFIR realm, there's kind of different variations of how capture the flags can be created. A lot of the times, the ones I'm playing are what they call Jeopardy style. And so they usually have categories of topics, and then there's kind of boxes of questions that have point values, and usually the easier questions are lower point values, and the higher ones are the harder questions.
I love how you say usually, and I will say, as someone who's both played CTFs and won CTFs, usually if a hard one is really, really easy and it's like 75 points and you ask it in 10 seconds, it's because you solved it in a way that whoever was building it was not thinking.
So do you have to solve them in a particular order, or you can pick and choose?
Depends.
Yeah, it definitely
Okay.
depends.
Well, there's that
Sometimes,
phrase again.
yeah, the best phrase, it depends. Sometimes there's questions that are hidden from the board. So
Mm.
you might have to answer a lower point question to actually unlock higher point questions. So sometimes in that regard, there is an order to it. Most of
Okay.
the ones that I've played, there's plenty of questions to start in different categories. So usually you can bounce around. Sometimes it's a strategy to finish one topic and go to the next one, or however people want to play it, basically.
All right,
So I
good.
have to ask. So, and because there's different types that you've said. So, in like whatever may be the most popular type, if it's a Jeopardy style or whatever it is, that's kind of one of the more popular types. Can you walk us through how do you even get started in this? Do you have to sign? I guess you sign up. What do
Yeah,
you get in advance?
There's
where
Kevin.
do you find them and sign up?
There's different websites that actually have lists. I think one is called like CTF Time, has like a full list of ones that are publicly available. A lot of times people will use the hashtags on, Twitter or Blue Sky or like any of those platforms. At least in the DFIR realm, a lot of the major vendors will put one on each year, so you can kind of look out for those on their social media posts as well.
And the Discord channel. They definitely get posted in the DFIR Discord for sure.
Yep,
So do you
there's a
just register like Kim A? Like you just register?
yeah. Sometimes they are limited to customers. Some I've seen some vendors limit them to just customers, which is it is what it is. Others it's open to the general public, so that's always better probably for people that either haven't played um, with the tools, or just want to play for fun. Doesn't limit the people from actually playing CTF.
But Debbie, if your question is like who can register, it's not, it's also people of all levels. There are CTFs, like if you start getting into like DEF CON, there's CTFs that have qualifiers and stuff for very high end CTFs. Those don't tend to be digital forensics related. Those tend to be more on like the offensive security side, on the
Right.
hacking side. But anyone can play. And, one of the cool things, and I can say this as someone who's built them, one of the cool things is that typically we build them to have questions for all stages of people, so that people who are just getting started can get some answers, get that check in the box, but also they can also be challenged to go up to the next level and learn from doing. And I don't know about all creators, but I know something I focus on is doing things that you can't solve just with clicking the tools, or that you have to go to specialty tools to solve, to encourage people to learn and expand. So, for me as somebody who's played CTFs but also writes them, my goal is always to bring an educational element in, to build CTFs that like teach about artifacts people should know about and maybe they're underutilized or not really known about, or new artifacts or things that should be supported and aren't, etc. Because it really allows examiners to understand why they need to do things. Also, things that are ambiguous or could easily be misinterpreted. We intentionally ask questions about those things to kind of force learning. And then in some CTFs, there's even hints. So the whole idea is they're meant for everybody. Sometimes there's this misnomer that they're only meant for people like Kevin. And to be honest, when I was building one of the CTFs last year, the whole reason for asking Kevin to be involved was so that everybody else felt they had a chance.
I think you
love it.
commented that somewhere on social media or something. I think I saw that mentioned somewhere.
Well, it was true. So,
So
Kevin
you sign
knows
up,
he's wrapped in now. He's ripped in
then
now.
what am I getting? Am I getting an image? Do I need to process it? Am I getting this ahead of time? Am I getting a few files ahead of time? What are they going to give me?
Kind of a mix of all. Some people do it differently. Sometimes the evidence is pre-processed. I'm always in favor of already processing it with my own tools, because you never know what settings were used to actually process it. So it's always good to just process it again if it is pre-processed. A lot of times it's just going to be the raw evidence, which is, you can use whatever tool you want. You can use a Linux command line that we've seen people use. We
Oh my
seem to
gosh,
use
yes.
the expensive commercial tools. We see the gamut of people using all sorts of things to really dig into the evidence, just kind of like real life and real case work.
So do you have an opportunity, if you're going to process, then I guess you get an opportunity to process that ahead of time. Is that right? You may not get the questions ahead of time, but you get to process it and you're ready. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say most of the ones I've played, they give you the evidence at least like a week or a few days ahead of time, that you can process it, look it through, kind of plan out where you kind of want to look for things. And then, obviously the questions aren't live until the go live of the event.
Do you find when you've pre-processed, do you actually go through and start figuring out where things are, and do you think that helps you?
I think so. I know a lot of times, especially when I was playing previous ones, I knew to look in certain locations where the commercial tools weren't processing. So database files, chat apps that aren't supported directly, most likely there's going to be a question in there to look. Um, there's so much, depending on what type of evidence it is, especially with like mobile phones, there's so many unsupported apps out there that we can pull question and answer banks from, that you kind of just have to understand how the inner workings are a little bit before, because you never know what will come up.
Do you feel like you learned anything from? I mean, you had played CTFs and won many, and in different places. Now that you've been behind the curtain, as it were, um, did it change any of your views on CTFs or how they work or how they're built from peering behind there?
It's definitely a large team effort. I mean, just seeing what we've gone through the past 2 years that I've worked with you on them, there's a lot that goes into it. We build them out for 6, 7 months sometimes. Um, there's things that we throw away because it gets kind of personal info in them, and we have to pivot and figure out what else we can add to it to put it out live. And that's, I
People
think, sometimes the trickiest part.
people might not know it, but if we intend on having two phones in the case, we usually start with many more pieces of evidence. We usually start with 4 to 5, expecting that 2 to 3 will get accidentally spoiled.
Yes, so I was going to ask, and I guess you kind of answered it, that how long it takes to create a really robust CTF, and how many people are involved in that. So it sounds like a long time and a lot.
6 months, 5 to 7. 6 months and 5 to 7
Wow.
people. Well,
That's
and then more at the end because we need people to verify the answers. So just because you write a question, you know what it is. We really put things through verifiers. We want to see alternative answers. So there's verification rounds, and the verifiers can't know anything about the data population. So usually we have to bring in verifiers to validate the data set and the questions and run through. So if you have 4 people or 5 people working on the CTF, you probably need another 3 to 4 to do the validation round.
interesting. And so
Definitely a team effort.
I'm gathering that when you start with, say, 5 to 7 pieces of evidence and, some of them get spoiled. So there's people who are actually carrying around digital
Oh
devices
yeah, yeah. I mean,
and creating this data for months ahead of time.
yeah, and I mean, there are lots. The CTFs I've worked on are obviously not the only CTFs,
Sure.
but I've worked on ones with Matt Sayer and David Cowan. And actually, the first one I built for Magnet was with them, and then I've worked on ones with and traditionally when I worked on ones with them, it was just like the 3 of us built it. But then I've worked on ones where I started bringing in interns to help build them. And the great thing about bringing in interns, not only do we get to try people out and, give jobs to young folks who are starting out, but because they live oftentimes on college campus, we don't have to worry about their personal address because
Right.
everything's just to the dorm building. So occasionally we'll have somebody who does live in an apartment or lives at home, and we don't let them have any of the mobile devices that we're purposely trying to populate. They might be doing something in a VM or something like that just to prevent that spoliation. But yeah, I mean, especially when you're involving IoT devices and everything else, that is always an interesting thing to bring in without having any issues, and in terms of personal data. The personal data stuff sometimes comes just because your own device will get connected to.
Connected.
Yeah. But just because you're in the same location, you're traveling a lot together, and like an app will recommend your real
Right.
person as a connection because it sees you always traveling together because your phones are literally both in your pocket.
Right.
So it'll be like, hey, do you know Kevin Pagano? And my character, Sally Smith, does not know Kevin Pagano, but because it's in Kevin's pocket. So typically, and then after, so you have to make a test plan, and then you have to populate the data, and you have to make a really robust test plan. Over the years I've built a whole procedure for this, so we have it like very down pat. Then
That's
you have
amazing.
to populate. You have to procure the devices, populate the device. Well, I'm sorry, procure the devices, test your acquisition method on the devices. You want to make sure you can get the complete acquisition because a lot of time we're trying to test on weird or new or different devices. Populate those devices, making sure that you're annotating. We annotate everything down to the minute, 1 minute intervals, and we take all actions 1 minute intervals so we can ensure that everything's correct. We document every button that's pressed and everything that's done on these devices. Then after we're done documenting all of that, then we actually have to do the actual final images, check those images, make sure they're good, and then you start writing questions. The question writing takes a lot of effort, and then once you're done writing questions and you have to go through a validation round, then you have to actually put all the questions into the platform. And then you have to validate all the questions. And then the big deal, and I hate to say this, is during the whole CTF, we have to make sure people are playing fairly, to ensure the integrity of the CTF. And that one makes me a little sad sometimes, that
Yeah,
sometimes
I
there's
know that some
integrity
people
violations.
play as teams, and I've seen notes and chats and things where maybe sometimes people are sharing information and they shouldn't. Is that
Well, last year we ran both a team and an individual contest for the Magnet CTF, and I did ping Kevin. I don't know what happened. We did lose him.
My
Hopefully we
my,
get him
my
back.
video
Oh, you're
disappeared.
here. I thought your
Yeah,
audio was gone too. Oh, good. Well, then you can still. It's a
hang
podcast.
out?
We don't need your video.
good old webcam, killing me. But
Yeah, no, totally
sorry
cool.
about that.
No, no, no issue. I thought you were gone. So that's the reason I was like blabbing and trying to answer everything. Um, but yeah, then when you the hard part is during the CTF, people are not necessarily playing by the rules. But last year we had a team and an individual, and I will say that it caused equally as many issues. And I think it is better just from a virtual perspective to do it online only. To, in my opinion, from a running it, there were so many requests for people to change teams and move teams, and then the answers are getting moved and everything else, and it's very
Oh, I see that.
it's
It
very
definitely,
cumbersome.
yeah, it definitely got a little bit complicated from the back end side with having kind of two boards basically running concurrently, which we made it work.
And we had enough people to support that, so that wasn't
Yeah,
the concern. We want people to have a positive experience. The reason that we had introduced the teams was because a lot of people requested it, but then players who played it didn't necessarily have the positive experience we wanted because of some of the complexities there. So I think it was a better user experience just having the single team based on the comments and responses during and after the CTF. But hey, right, always changing and trying to do something new. So that was interesting. But I love playing CTFs. I love building them. And the big thing is I want to encourage more young people to do it. People who are just starting or people who aren't sure, because you don't have to be playing to compete, right? The only people whose names get revealed are the winners. So if you're in place 300, nobody needs to know. You don't need to use your real name. You can use a pseudonym. The only people who know the real names are those of us who are running the back end, and we're not saying anything. We've never dimed anybody. Um, but it's really a good way to learn, a good way to get access to newest data sets, good data sets for testing your tools. And some of the vendors give trials when you play the CTF. Not all, but some of them do. And that's an advantage too, because you can get to use new tools.
yeah, especially like if you're like a student. I mean, you might be going to university, your university might have the tools, they might not have the licensing for it. So just being able to use some of those commercial tools that, obviously you wouldn't be paying for out of your own pocket probably, I think is good to get that experience, especially if you're still looking for a job, right out of university.
Now, and I've seen where players will then write blogs on
Yes.
afterwards, like how they solve certain puzzles or certain portions of the CTF. So I think probably if you're new or wanting to wanting to play your first CTF, you can go and still find these blogs, right? And see how people solved each problem.
Yes, but Debbie, you know what? If you're new, the best thing you can do is write a blog about how you solve them. That's something for your resume. It's something that shows people how you think. It's something that really demonstrates your methodology for solving problems, and that can be huge for an employer looking to hire you. So I think for folks who are looking to break into the field, that competing in a CTF and writing up blogs is the best thing they can do. From someone who authors CTFs, the blogs are my favorite thing because people solve these in all kinds of weird ways that we never imagined having
So
written
there's
it.
no
Because when
one
you
right
write it,
answer.
well, no, there's one right answer.
Okay. There's no one right way to get
There's no
there.
one right way to
Okay.
get there. There's
Okay.
multiple ways to get there. Very, very big distinction.
Yes.
So yeah, there's multiple ways to get to the correct answer. And I see people solve things in ways I would have never thought of. And then sometimes I'm like, I had this really complicated solution for a question that I wrote that I thought was a 75 pointer, and somebody comes in with a one line Linux command and solves it, and it like makes me feel like it should have been a 5 point question. So that's
They,
happened.
they they use grep or something, and it finds the file right away and just blows everything out of the water.
And yeah, or you think write something and you think it's a really simple, and you have a very clean, elegant way to get to the solution. And what you're finding is people are making it way harder, and they're going through many more steps, kind of like I did when I wrote the 75 pointer to get to the answer. So it's really really interesting to see the solutions, because a lot of times they're not the way that as the author you thought it would be solved. And you've got to remember, as the author, you a lot of times you create data to intentionally create certain artifacts that you've seen in the wild or that you know are relevant, and or to like point out certain um, best techniques and recommendations and skill building, and some of it to give people courage that they understand some basic things, some to get people to identify different locations and where some information is. So it's really built as a learning experience. And I know lots of organizations, many organizations, where they'll actually make it the assignment. The entire team is going to play the CTF for 3 hours, not as a team, but like, hey, our work center for these 3 hours, this is part of your annual training. Everybody's going to download the image and process it this week. And then we are all going to work on this CTF because it makes us better and smarter. It's not the same conditions in which you normally are solving things. You're doing it under a clock. You have like a 3 hour window. But that 3 hour window, or whatever the window happens to be on that CTF, I've done 24-hour ones. Um, I once did a
I,
24-hour one, and I went to bed in second place and woke up in third because I decided I wasn't going to do the full 24 hours, that I needed sleep.
I competed in one that was, I think, over a weekend or something, and
Mm-hmm.
I was close to the top by the end of the second day. And similar thing, I woke up, I was like, I need to wake up early, and I got up in the middle of the night or something was playing because I was just like excited to play and just make sure that, you know, things were still going okay. But especially if they're kind of virtual, everyone in the world can play. So you're competing against people that might be in Australia or Asia, and that time difference sometimes is a positive, sometimes it works against you too. So
Yeah.
I
So
know some people that have played in some of ours that have been kind of the first to finish ones, they stay up for probably longer than 24 hours to compete.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes when we design them, our fear is always somebody's going to solve it in the 3 hour window. Never ever have I written a CTF that gets solved in the 3 hour window. Um, Maybe the large language. I wonder if there's going to be a bots that play this year, Kevin. Like if a large language model should play the CTF. Oh, that'd be interesting. You know what? If in the next CTF we do, Kevin, if we build another one, wouldn't it be cool if a large language model literally put in the questions from the CTF to see if it would get the answers right? We're
Well,
going
I
to
was
have to
going to
test that.
ask if AI, if asking AI, if that's going to be something that's going to be maybe a way people could cheat.
So now we're going to check all the answers to make sure that they don't all come back from the large language models and the tools that have them, right? That the questions are complex enough that that's not the answer. Or maybe they will highlight some of the reasons that that can go wrong. So, that's
Maybe they'll
That
give
would
definitely
be
people
good.
the wrong answers.
That too.
Mhm.
That
So
would be
tell
a
me,
great learning experience.
so Kevin, give me just like two ends of the spectrum here. Like what would be an example or a sample question that would be like a 5 point question, and like what would be maybe a question that's like a 75 point question? Like what's the difference in these?
Yeah, something like a 5 point question could be something like what was the name of the user account set up on a Windows 10 machine or something? Or um, what chat application was installed, you know, and if there might be only one chat application installed. In terms of like a 75 point question, it would be something along the lines of having either multiple layers or in a location that's not easily parsed. So I think one of the ones we had last year, you would have to dive into like a SegB file from an iOS image, and then you would have to basically parse that out and then convert a timestamp that's in a different format than normal. Something that would take, 1, 2, 3 steps to actually get to the final answer is usually the more points.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, the CTFs I build, we actually literally count the steps, and that determines the. If it shows automatically in a forensics tool, you don't have to do anything. That's 5 points. If you have to do one level of analysis, like correlate two pieces of data, that might be 10 points. If you have to then find the location, that might make it 25 points. So by the time you get to 75 points, that means in theory there's 5 steps. So it and some of them will maybe it'll be a 4 step question, but one of those steps is, oh, what was the crazy one with the audio file last year? We had one with um
Yeah,
where you
yeah, you took like a MP3 or a WAV file, and then it was you had to take the frequency of each beat, and that translated, I think, hex values or
hex
something.
values, and then you had to convert the hex to ASCII.
Yeah, that one was really
That was
complicated.
really
Kudos to that,
complicated. Yeah.
whoever made that one.
That was Adam Hansham, who he would, to be honest. So I would say coincidentally we've hired about an intern a year. Adam got hired, and it might not have been that question that got him hired, but he's very
I'm
very
not
smart.
surprised he came up with that one.
I know you've been working with him, Kim. But there are a variety of questions, and they do build up. And so, like I said, the 10 point and the 25 point ones really are getting that investigative mindset. So the tool's not telling you to answer directly, but you have to correlate two pieces of information or three pieces of information. So maybe you have to figure out the timeline of what was happening, and what app was in use when a call came in, right? So to be like, when Debbie called Kim, what app was the user using? Right? So now you're going to look at the notification or when the call came in, and then you've got to go look and figure out what app they were using when the call came in.
Right.
Or
So
we've had ones where you would have to like find a QR code
Oh,
or
yes.
something that would then lead you to somewhere else and down a rabbit hole potentially.
Yeah.
We've learned to avoid prices on items because certain items may go on sale over the course of the period we
Oh,
we
create the CTF. So
we had a belt in a CTF, and its price was an answer to a question at a particular link that existed in the data set. And so we asked the price of the belt that the user had been looking at, and the belt went on sale while we were running the CTF after we had written the question and validated it. So then the price of the belt actually changed. So
that's fun.
anytime you have something where you have to go out to the web, there's always this extra element of it might change, and so we have to be prepared for that, either to nix a question or tweak the question at the last moment. But we usually have a couple, or at least in the ones I've built and in the ones I've done, that force you to go out. One of my favorite CTFs was one that I worked on with Matt Sayer and David Cowan, and it was themed around The Simpsons. And so they all have themes or a crime or whatever. But in this particular theme, there is a Simpsons episode where there is an auto dialer. Basically, Homer thinks he comes up with this scheme where he's going to make this money by having an auto dialer that does like farm calling, right? Like a call center. So Matt Sayer built the auto dialer 7000, I believe it's 7000, put it in the CTF, ran it, and one of the questions was, what was the last number did it call? So like that's an example of a hard question. Hats off to Matt Sayer for that. That one was one of my favorite ones ever.
Wow.
So there's
Well,
different strategies, because some people will go straight for the high point questions and try to do those first, and some people will go for the low point questions. Some people are really sneaky, and they'll write all their answers on paper and then not fill them into the end, so they don't look like they're in the scoreboard. So they'll wait till the last 15 minutes and then just dump all their answers in, which is a risk, because if you get something wrong, it's not like you have it fresh in your head. Um, but actually, Kevin and I have done a couple of, if you look at some old Magnet user summits, the virtual summits, there are recordings of Kevin and I doing walkthroughs explaining how to do a CTF. So we've done some workshops over the years, a couple of them, right, Kevin?
ooh, that would be
yeah, I think 3 or 4
that
now
would be
maybe.
fun.
3 or 4. And so those data sets are public too. So we walk through a couple of questions, and someone can download the data set and then check those.
so when you said you have to enter your answers then, so and there's a leaderboard, you said, and am I getting told whenever I answer a question incorrectly?
Yeah, you get that feedback
I
typically.
could fix it.
Yeah, a typical. Maybe it depends. I know you hate that answer. Debbie
Uh,
was like, "There it goes again." Sometimes questions have lockouts, so they can't brute force. So, for example, we had a question on one CTF that asked what cardinal direction someone was facing when they took a picture. in a market in Germany, like no joke. We really do make these
It was a motion
expensive.
photo.
It
Yeah,
was
I
a
remember
motion
this one.
photo. Yeah, Debbie's like, "What?" And so we asked what cardinal direction. Now, obviously there's only so many cardinal directions, right? So in that case, we limited it to one attempt, right? So anything you could brute force might be limited, including things which are just asking for raw numbers, because there are people who will just start putting in, like, if you knew the range is between 1 and 100, there are people who will just try to brute force it. So we may limit something to
That's
1 or 3.
kind of not in the spirit of what you're trying to do. You're not learning anything that way.
I, yes, that is correct. But some people's goals are not necessarily
So
to learn.
competitive, so competitive.
Some people are
Yeah, some
extraordinarily
people are
competitive.
very
Win at all
prize
costs.
centric, I would say.
Oh, okay. Are there
So
prizes involved a lot of
Yeah,
times?
I don't think I've seen a CTF that doesn't have a prize.
Mm. What kind of prize?
All kinds of prizes. Sometimes there's swag items. I
I've
previously go ahead. What are some things you won? I'll say what I won. You can say what you won.
I've won a lot of things. I think I've won too many backpacks. I've won obviously challenge coins is a big one that
Okay.
we like. I've won Net Wars, Sans Net Wars certificates, which is like to play their
Another
CTF.
CTF, right?
Yeah. I've won free training passes.
I
The one
once
year I won a Yeti cooler, which was kind of cool, and they actually gave me a beer subscription because I'm a big beer snob, so that was a really cool one. Um,
I won a black bag license once for
I was about to say,
for
will they
blacklight.
when
That
they give
I don't
license?
think that's very common right now. That was at the
yeah.
DEF CON CTF. So I mean I wasn't
It's going
complaining
back a
about
bit a
getting.
ways too.
Yeah. I'm going in a wayback machine. And yeah, so I won that. I've won swag before, a lot of swag. Um, but yeah, there's lots of different prizes that are out there for different CTFs. But Kevin brings up the point that some of these CTFs have limited edition coins that are specifically just for the CTF. So that is what makes them so cool, is it'll be like a coin for that CTF. So there will be only like 5 people in the world who have that coin
That is
or
cool.
something limited like that. So that is
I
a
say
very unique thing.
I have a trophy on my bookshelf that was from one of the Net Wars Tournament of Champions, and
Oh
that is
yeah.
probably the only one I've ever seen that actually had a trophy that was
Well,
given out.
that was a
That was
CTF of CTF winners.
Yeah, that was a really cool experience. That was over when COVID was still kicking strong. So
So how have they changed over time? You mentioned IoT devices. We've mentioned possibly using, AI. Like how have the? I'm sure that the questions have changed throughout time, but how people solving them? Like how have CTFs changed over the span of time you guys have been doing them?
I wouldn't say they've changed too much in terms of like the evidence files. I mean, I think early on it was a lot more of like just Windows machines, but then I think you can only do so much with that, and now we're starting to see a lot more mobile as we get full file system extractions, and now we're including in some of ours the cloud-based buckets. So
Mm-hmm.
we usually do like a takeout from Google. Um, I've seen ones that are IoT like the devices. We've had Chromebooks in the past when those
Mac,
were
we've done Macs, we've done, but the typically we try to bring in a new element each year. I will be honest, sometimes the new element we try to bring in doesn't wind up working. Last year we were going to bring in a Rabbit R1, which is a little AI pin device that you can talk to and do things, but we had some problems with the acquisition of that. And so sometimes you can have the best laid plans and they don't work out. But like I said, we always start with way more devices than we wind up with. Um, and yeah, so there's a lot of graveyard devices. But yeah,
That's
and it's always the newest operating system. So I will say the really good thing about the CTF is, right, like every year, Android and iOS come out with the newest operating system, and there isn't really a public image of that. So via the CTF, even some people who don't play, the advantage to signing up for the CTF is to get a copy of that image so you can use it for testing, validation, running through your tools, your own research, um, and that can be really, really helpful. So I think that there's an advantage even if you never intend to play. But play, please play. You can learn so much. You can learn
I
so
was
much.
playing one the other day, and it had a memory dump, and it's not something
Oh,
I
we did
do
a
much
memory.
with.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, one of the coolest things of playing these CTFs is learning those new formats and things that you don't get to play with on a daily basis.
Yeah, we did lots of memory. We did well. I've done two at memory dumps before, not lots, but two. So that's something we've included in them before. But basically, that's the deal. Is always trying to include new and different sources of data, so people can get exposed to them. New apps, things that are unsupported. That's always like a focus. So when you're asking if they change, uh, format wise, we tend to stick with Jeopardy style. We tend to stick with, but I will say, I should get out of the types of CTFs that Kevin and I make and tend to play. There are other types of CTFs, or hack and defend CTFs. So for people who are more on the IR side, like the Blue Team Village does a defense CTF. There are hack and defend CTFs where it's like blue team versus red team. There's flags on networks, and you actually go onto the network and get things. So there are other types of CTFs outside of the Jeopardy style. So if you're talking about evolution, that's another way to
Yeah,
think
I
of
went
it.
to the website that Kevin mentioned,
Yep.
ctftime.org,
Mm-hmm.
and it has upcoming CTFs. And between now and the end of the year, it looks like maybe there's 25
Right,
that are listed.
but they're not. Most of those are probably not DFIR CTFs.
It says Jeopardy and Attack Defense
Right,
are
so
the
it's
two.
so,
Yeah,
but
there's
you can have a
cybersecurity
Jeopardy.
maybe.
They can be cybersecurity. They
Yeah,
can be more offensive security.
it's
Red
what it looks
team.
like.
Yeah,
And even so, there's
but
some
those are
really
good.
great OSINT CTFs that
I've seen,
people put on,
yes.
and I know there's one out there where you're probably going to say it, but there was one that was actually a real world example of trying to help. Um, I think it was finding, child exploitation
Uh, there's
cases.
not child exploitation cases. There's I think I know what you're talking about, and I've done it, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's a CTF that people play, and what they do is they bring all cold cases of missing persons. And so you're doing a CTF to get different points on finding different types of data, but the goal is they actually take what's found by the CTF players and package them up and give them to the investigators who have the cases at the end.
Actual law enforcement,
Actual
right?
law enforcement. Right. So
Yeah.
they take these cold cases that are unsolved, say, what can you find out about them? They give different types of points for, and you work in teams. And that was actually kind of cool because you can get assigned to a team of people you've never met. And I did that. So I was playing with people from all over the world, and I got to learn all kinds of things doing that. I love that. Can I remember the name of that CTF? No. But I competed in it and I played in it. But it is amazing because you're finding information about real cases, for real people, all in open source intelligence. So the OSINT ones are fun. And the OSINT ones, like, anyone can play. There's a couple of OSINT start meets. Oh, I will say, if you want to know the cheat to doing a digital forensic CTF, it is Kevin Pagano's Forensic Start Me page. It has all the tools, all the resources, nicely organized, all the cheat sheets, everything. And it is the best place for you to find things while you're doing the CTF. And also, most of the CTFs, like the ones I've built, yes, they're 3 hours for the competition, but then we leave them open for a week or two. So you have time to still play, and you can always take the questions and the things. And on about DFIR, .com, there's a CTF drop down, and it does have just the digital forensics ones from the past. Gives you a link to the image, a link to where the questions are still written or showing, usually in a blog, and then blogs that solve it. So that is a good resource for that too.
I may or may not add tools and links to my Start Me page that are useful for specific questions. So
What?
I've done that
What?
before.
Hint, hint, Easter
Hint, hint,
eggs.
hint, 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 hint. Well, we're we've got some stuff up our sleeves. We're hoping to have the opportunity to build some more CTFs for the community, Kevin and I, because uh, we have some stuff up our sleeves and they're fun. And Kevin will have to bring Adam in to do a lot too because he can write some insanely hard questions. And
I
insanely
would
hard is
think
good. I will say I've done other formats of CTFs. I've done CTFs where we wrote questions that it's one question, but we expect the question to take a week to answer. So we've done some really hard questions where we're talking intensive research to be able to figure it out. And yeah, and not design the CTF to have them when we initially built the CTF, but I've realized over the years that you can take an image and you can write, if the image is well populated and well documented, you can write questions till the cows come home. I don't know where the cows are though. Hey Kevin, any other tips or pointers for folks for CTFs?
I would just say just play. I mean,
Just
if you can set aside the time, depending on if it's, 3 hours live, just play. Or if not, just download the evidence and walk through it and read the write-ups and try walking through it on your own time and just trying to learn as much as you can if you don't know some of the different artifacts or don't know where to look for things. Uh, it's such a great way to learn about forensics in general.
Yeah, so signing up, not playing, and then waiting for the walkthroughs for people to blog is a really good strategy to learn if you're really novice. I would say, please, 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 you don't have to solve every question to write a blog. You can write a blog just about the ones you solved, and that'll really help people who are trying to break into the job market. Obviously, for people who are well established, there's the competitive angle of competing for prizes and trying to solve the challenge of the really hard questions and getting exposed to the new evidence. And I guess the bigger question is why not? And something I'd like to encourage is I'd like to encourage lab leaders to have their folks get those 3 hours dedicated or whatever the time is so that they can work on the CTF because it is such an interesting, intentional learning opportunity that is developed for the community. And how often do you get free learning opportunities that have been curated that include data sets and actual real scenarios? Not often. So I really just encourage leaders to have their folks do them, and that encourages people to play. And with that, any other questions, folks? No?
I
Play
don't
your
have any.
CTFs. Play your CTF. Play your CTFs. Hopefully, there will be some CTFs this season. I'm sure there will be. And hope to see you there. Thank you so much, Kevin, for joining us. Sorry your video went out, but we're glad we got to see you at the beginning.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
thanks.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.